Thank you. Deputy Connolly.
Cahirli Gardamila Mahagat, agus Cogorgicus, agus Gwim Gotra, Aranada Nua, agus Tasula Gungamai non Uber Aslovicala. Just congratulations to the new Minister, and I welcome the invitation to work with you, and if we have good ideas to share them with you, I welcome that. I also welcome, as other speakers have done, the drop in the unemployment rate, and that has to be welcomed. However, to analyse the effects of that, one has to put it in context, and only two speakers today have referred to the Damon report just yesterday from Unite. And I'd ask you, Minister, to read that report and to come back to us with your response. And as has been pointed out already, the truth about Irish wages reveals that the highest paid private sector workers earn almost 4 times as much as the lowest paid employees. So they're 4 times ahead. In addition, it reveals that taking wages into account and PRSI payments were 6% below the EU average, and Ireland has the second highest level of wage inequality, and in fact that is the most damning part of it, that the difference in the wages from top to bottom. And then if we look at your own jobs and rural development, the government's programme, and again there are many good ideas in that, and I have read it, and I welcome that we now have a Minister for Regional Development and Rural Affairs. That's extremely important, and notwithstanding what John Moran might have said lately, that we can't afford to look after rural Ireland and that we should be going towards development in cities, which was an appalling statement on his behalf. Just Ireland's population is one of the most rural in EU, and some 42% of Irish people live in rural areas compared to an EU average of 27%. That is a reality. It's a figure I didn't have. 42% of Irish people live in rural areas, and more than a third, or 35% of Ireland's population, live in cities, and a quarter of Irish people live in towns and suburbs. And of course, people in towns and suburbs are also at a greater risk of poverty and social exclusion. And so if we place your statement today, your speech, and jobs and rural development in context, we have to look at what has happened in relation to the casualisation of work. We are all aware of the unpredictability of income and jobs, and of course that's intimately and integrally tied up with housing and the difficulty of accessing rent, and affordable mortgage for houses. And so with insecure jobs, we've insecure lives, which obviously has a lead on into difficulties in the areas of health and housing, and the whole thing is interrelated. And so what I would love to see, again, I welcome the positive aspects, but what we need to see is we cannot wait all of the time for the economy to pick up. The economy must be driven by sustainable jobs. I see it, I think, in reverse to you, Minister, but maybe we're not that far apart. But sustainable jobs should be leading the economic recovery. And then if we look at this page 43 up to page 54, we see many good ideas in relation to the development of village and town renewal and capital investments. But I see absences. I see the Commission for Economic Development in Rural Areas, which came up with many good ideas. It's not mentioned in your report. And so I would ask you to specifically address that and the recommendations. Not mentioned in your report is the study from the University of Limerick, a study of the prevalence of zero-hour contracts and the if and when contracts, and the appalling situation that employees find themselves in. And again, 14 recommendations in this, not mentioned in your report. Now, I know it's difficult and I know you didn't have time, but really it's something that has to be addressed, and timeframes for all of this. In relation to sustainable development, Deputy Smith has already mentioned Indigenous industry. I fully support her on that. That should be the driving force for our economic development. There are many, many opportunities in alternative energies, as she's pointed out, in relation to the seaweed industry, which we're waiting on a report in relation to that. Many, many sustainable jobs. I was at a conference in Trinity College lately where a farmer businessman from Quilty pointed out that alone for seaweed products there were 18 jobs created, keeping people in the local area in Quilty, County Clare, from seaweed products. And of course then the fishing industry hasn't been mentioned at all, and the quota system, which has left our fishermen without sustainable jobs from Donegal down to Kerry on the west coast. Again, it's something that has to be looked at. And simple matters, again, if we go back to youth and employment, which Deputy Brown has mentioned, 15%. Apprenticeships are vital, and I would like to see a review report on that as to where we're going. Again, if I go parochial, but make a general point, I live in the Galway where the City Council has seen its staff absolutely cut back. There are no summer jobs for young people. If we were seriously interested in young people, we would have summer schemes so that they can remain at work. And finally, any unemployment figures, again, must be, and the rise in them and the positive rise, must be seen in the context of immigration figures, which are still appallingly high. Last year alone, 35,000 Irish people left this country. And if we look at over the last 5 years, I think the figure is up at over 250,000. So any improvement must be seen overall. And finally, just in relation to the leader, and I'd have to mention this, Minister, and it's something I would like to come back to you on, in relation to Forum Connemara, who have 25 years' experience and find themselves being shoved out of the leader programme, where they have the expertise on the ground. Thank you very much, Cahirley.